Welcome to the Curation Professional Development Experiences, the value of Pro Points in student engagement and success session. My name is Leonard Simpson, the Education Director or Director of Justice Involved Populations here at the System Office. This session is being recorded, just so you know, and there will be time for Q&A at the end of the session. Please share your questions in the chat so that we can get back to some of those questions that are just burning and you need an answer to that. So we'll have questions to start with at that time for Q&A. For folks who like to use their caption, to turn on caption during the session, click the three dots at the top of the meeting, click on language, then you'll click on speech or language and speech, and then turn on the captions. For more information, I did provide a link, Microsoft link in the chat for you to click on and find out more information. As far as resources and recordings are concerned, they will be available on the WTCS Faculty Summit site. Our goal is to have recordings and resources uploaded within the next week. You'll receive an email when those resources are available. So before I turn this session over to our presenter, Megan, let's take a moment to review the session expectations. We're very excited to host the third WTCS Faculty Summit. We recognize many of you are taking out time of your busy workday, but we're so glad that you joined us here and to be a part of this session. One thing we want to do to make the most of this session is to please be in the room. Please be curious. And remember to take space and make space as you engage during this session. Again, please share your questions in the chat and we will address them at the end of the presentation. Also, at the end of this session, I will be putting a link to an exit ticket in the chat, asking for brief feedback on the session and encouraging you to share one action step you want to take back with you or inform us of and share. Now, I'd like to turn over this session to Morgan from Mid-State Technical College. Hey.
Thank you very much. So I am going to share so I can get my slides up. All right, can everyone see my slides?
Sure can. Thanks, Morgan.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So thank you all for taking time out of your Friday to be a part of this session. I'm very excited to be with everyone. My name is Morgan Vanderhei, or Mo is how I'm known at Mid-State, and I'm actually going on my 6th year with the college, but only my 2nd year in a role as faculty. I spent my first 4 years on the recruitment and outreach team, which kind of ties into why ProPoints is something that I was really excited to have the opportunity to kind of take and integrate program wide for us. When you're on a K-12 team or when you're on an outreach recruitment team, you work a lot with our K-12 partners and you do a lot of events. So you firsthand get to see that glimmer in the eye of a student when something clicks for them in an event, when they make a connection, when they get excited about something, or overall when they realize something is an opportunity for them. You see that growth firsthand. Really ties into why ProPoints are such an important part of our program now. So I'm excited to talk to all of you about that today. I also shared before we got started, I'm actually kind of nervous because it's the first time I formally presented on this topic, but I always tell my students that nervousness is a good thing because it means that you care. So feel free to put stuff in the chat as was mentioned, but also raise your hand if you have a question and ultimately something that you want to work through. I'm happy to stop and have a conversation. So why we needed ProPoints. The learning environment has really changed for all of us in recent years, where the traditional classrooms don't necessarily exist as the primary form of learning. We have a lot of online and hybrid formats, and there are so many positives to that because we're able to reach our students no matter where they are. Many of our students are very busy and maybe being a student isn't their first thing. So by having all of these different formats, we're able to allow them to pursue whatever their post-secondary goals are. But with that shift and how online learning has changed things, it's also changed the opportunity for connection for our students, that organic connection that happens when we're all face-to-face in one room with one another, have that downtime in between classes or maybe attending things on campuses, things like that, that some programs in the technical school system don't necessarily have like our program is I'm teaching business management. So we don't have lab spaces like some of the programs. Our classrooms are very different. And as students have shifted online, there's been this cultural shift of students going through their educational journey and they're doing everything that they need to do to complete what they have to do for school. Maybe they have other commitments outside of work. They've got families, possibility, other jobs, all these other things. Professional development becomes optional or extra. Well, that's just one more thing that I have to do. And we saw a need for a cultural shift. I was lucky enough that this was something that was being piloted before I even became faculty and was able to kind of take it and integrate it forward with the support of a lot of our fellow faculty because ProPoints is that cultural shift. We don't want professional development to be seen as optional. We are all here today listening to different speakers and fellow faculty because we understand the value of professional development. We know that we are lifelong learners as educators, but students might think about that more of, okay, I'm in a position where I have to learn. Well, we want to transition them from that mindset and that cultural shift of I have to learn to I get to learn, and that's where ProPoints come in. It really gives intentional opportunities for students to practice connection, to practice different skills, to step into real world experiences that gives them that culture of growth that they really need to be successful. And how does that tie into what we're doing in the classroom? So everything that we do in the classroom, we're providing knowledge to our students in our courses, but we need them to practice what we call at Mid-State Technical College is employability skills. You might call them career readiness or soft skills. Every college has their own version. These are the ones we utilize at Mid-State: behave responsibly, communicate effectively, demonstrate cultural, social, and global awareness by engaging with diverse perspectives, thinking critically and creatively, and then using appropriate technology. We all have our own versions of these skills that are incorporated into all of our syllabi. And ultimately, we're teaching to our competencies, but we have these integrated within all of our courses because these are those skills that put the knowledge base that they're gaining in our classes together with the skills that they need to be successful when they enter the professional realm. We wanted a way for students to practice these. So practice over perfection. We wanted low stakes environments and opportunities for them to get in that mindset of actually harnessing these skills for professionalism, especially with what I already talked to. This transition to online learning is still valuable. We're still giving them all of the content and the tools to be successful, but with that push to online, they aren't practicing those skills as much as they used to because we are not in real time. Online learning is extremely valuable, and it wouldn't be as successful as it is in all different educational realms if it wasn't, but there are certain things that cannot be recreated in an asynchronous environment that we get when we're real time with one another. And that's part of these soft skills and these employability skills that students get to practice. So all of these things are kind of what drove us to pull ProPoints into part of our business management program, is the fact that online learning has changed the way we connect for the good or for the bad, whatever it's personal opinion, depending on the classes or what you think. We know that students are looking at everything as one more thing that they have to do. So how do we get them to change that mindset where they see value in these things and what they're gaining from it in their personal and professional growth? And then obviously there might need to be a little bit of incentive for this to actually work. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the framework of ProPoints. So what are ProPoints? The way we utilize them in our program is, it's very interesting because it's trial and error. When you start something like this out, and these are relatively new, we just had our first full year in the academic year of 2024-2025. That was our full year of ProPoints being actually integrated within our program. So prior to that, they were just piloted within one class. So they weren't necessarily in multitudes of classes. And then we made a couple adjustments along the way. So we actually used to require some more experiences than two, kind of learn that was maybe a little bit too much for students. You live and you learn in all different roles. And what we've landed on is that ProPoints are 2 experiences per 8-week term. I teach in 8-week terms. They are graded assignments. They count for 10% of the final grade. And then students must include 1 networking activity. They are flexible student-driven selections, and they are instructor approval to ensure that there's a relevance for those. So this is really high level how we lay them out. I do want to share, kind of jump around a little bit here because it's the easiest for me to do. I do want to actually share. One second. I'm going to stop sharing for a second because my presentation didn't want, and I'm going to share one more time. There we go. So that slide shows very high level what they are. I actually want to pull over this detailed information that we're going to talk about. So in our classes, we lay out what Pro Points are, and I showed up the framework of what they are very high level. But if we get into more detail, this is kind of what our students see. So I wanted to be able to show you that quickly, and then I will jump back into it. So that is what Pro Points are and how we lay them out in the class. And the networking part that you see screenshotted, it was very interesting when you told students, okay, you're going to do these 2 requirements in your classes, and one has to include for real-time networking. We constantly get asked, well, what is networking? Students have no idea what that means when we're asking them to network, and it actually kind of makes them a little bit nervous and some folks. So we were able to break that down for them. And that means that it has to be real-time event. It has to involve at least 3 or more people, including yourself, active participation, and you must engage by talking or asking questions. So we were able to kind of break that down so that they actually understood what it meant to be networking experience. But overall, this is the framework that's in the classes. And then as we move forward, how has this been successful? So I had showed you some information that I'm going to dive into and kind of walk through, but I want to get through all of these first is how has it really been successful? So when you roll something out, there's a lot of confusion when you try something new, especially when you have students in different points of their academic journey within the business management program. Well, now we have this new requirement that we're laying out that it's something that you're going to have to do. It's part of the assignment. So something that has made it very successful in our program is that we have shared expectations across all of our business management program courses. So the image that you're seeing on the right is a folder that gets copied into all of our course shells, no matter what the course is. We are all putting the same exact information of the importance, the requirements, the submission requirements, everything that it means when it comes to Pro Points. We have that standard point value program wide. It's always 10% of their overall grade, no matter what class that they're in that requires Pro Points. They all use the exact same submission process. And then faculty really come together to regularly highlight different opportunities for Pro Points and share the same type of curated announcements. So they're always seeing that same messaging throughout our programs. So now that's where I'm going to come back to talking about how we lay out Pro Points in our classes before I talk about experiences. So we have this space called the Business Programs Water Cooler, and this is where that folder that I showed lives. So this Pro Points Enhancing Your Professional Growth. In all of our programs, we copy this folder over, and this is where students are really able to see the why Pro Points matter that I talked about with our employability skills. They're able to see a breakdown of the Pro Points requirements and what they're expected to complete. They have a list of what possibly could count as a Pro Points experience. This is where that networking information is also housed. And then it talks about managing across multiple classes. So this information is the same no matter if they're in my Introduction to Business course or Sharon's on the call, her Quality Customer Service course. No matter what course they're in, they're always seeing the exact same language, the exact same requirements for Pro Points to hopefully mitigate any confusion, which we found has been very successful. And this document gets updated constantly. So we learn things, we get asked a question from students. We even, I'm going to scroll down a little bit, hopefully not make anyone too dizzy. We've added this common Pro Points questions and answers at the bottom because we constantly get questions from students. So we try to put stuff in here. Also teaching students to look, how many times do we get asked questions from students and it's in the course shell. So we all have defaulted when they ask us something about Pro Points, we say, hey, have you reviewed the Pro Points folder? Let me know after reviewing that information if you still have any questions. I'm happy to help answer those. So try to get them in that mindset of going and knowing that that information is already there and actually read through it in detail. There's also some information on where they find Pro Points experiences, which I'm going to get to in a second, and then how they submit their Pro Points. So everything that they need to be successful with Pro Points is in this folder, and they're always seeing the same thing. Obviously, in the beginning, there was a lot of hiccups and a lot of questions, but now that we're on our second year of this being there, students really know that this information is here, and then they know when they go to this folder, they can also get a reminder of, okay, these are the courses that require Pro Points. These are the where I can find experiences, and these are how I can submit my Pro Points. Having that consistency across our programs has really made a ton of difference when it comes to having Pro Points. And when it comes to having students submit them, we've tried to make it extremely easy for them. So we have a Pro Point submission form that's incognito, which is a platform that we utilize at Midstate. And in this form, students are able to share their information, what courses that they're in, what event or activity that they completed. and the date they completed it. If it involved networking or not, we have a little reminder here for them to kind of self-check if it wasn't networking. And then all they have to do in order to actually get those points is they have to highlight 3 things that they learned from that event that they participated in or that opportunity. And then they also have to do a screenshot or maybe a selfie if they were at an event to really show us proof that they were at the event. I always find it funny, one of the requirements is that our pro points have to happen during that term. So they have to be timely. And I was teaching a class during December and a student submitted a golf outing. And I was able to message the golf. I use this example in my classes every term when I talk about pro points. I'm a golfer myself. So I messaged that student and said, hey, love your submission. Can you tell me what golf course is open right now? Because I'm a golfer myself and I didn't realize there were any courses open. Was able to have a conversation with that student and then explain to them why that didn't qualify, though they ended up working a booth at this event. It was a great opportunity to make connection and gain some development, but didn't qualify for pro points because it didn't meet the criteria. So being able to challenge them a little bit on their submissions as well. But this has worked really well. All of these go to one general space and all of us instructors pull from the same submission form. So it's a little labor intensive on our end, but we really enjoy reading through those reflections. And it also allows us to use the same submission. So one thing I didn't highlight that is highlighted in here is managing classes with pro points. So you have multiple classes with pro points, you still are ultimately only doing 2 per 8 weeks. So it's always the same thing, no matter if you're in multiple classes. So in transitioning back, I want to make sure I have enough time for questions, and I want to talk about the experiences aspect. So that's a really important part of Pro Points. We're asking students to do these professional development activities and events. Well, how are they going to figure out what they can and cannot do? We have some framework in that document that outlines what qualifies, but students get stressed when they have to go out and look for things. They get a little bit nervous sometimes when it's not outlined for them. Therefore, we have experiences that count. So we have curated some experiences like the Bringing Business to You speaker series and the Picture Yourself Here business tours. These are automatic options that are built into our program or our courses that students can utilize without having to go out and look for things. We also use this as an opportunity to highlight opportunities within our college. So different things that are happening at the college, whether that be maybe a LinkedIn session with career services, or maybe our student services and is doing something to help you learn about financial aid. Maybe you could do a mock interview. All of these different things that are already happening at the college to get them to engage beyond their classes. So putting that incentive like, yeah, we want you to join this club. We have a club called Business Professionals of America that one of my counterparts chairs. Go attend a meeting and use it for pro points and learn how you can engage. So really leveraging what's already happening at the college. Highlighting different community events. We have an organization like the Founders Network, where we really lift up local entrepreneurs, encouraging students to go attend one of those sessions and support things that are happening in the community, highlighting different professional associations, virtual options, all sorts of things that student can do in order to engage without them having to go out and look. We have a spreadsheet that I'm just going to share kind of quickly here that is in that folder that I already highlighted that we curate that lists month by month things that are going on at the college and the community that they can do that would already qualify. We also have a bunch of on demand since only one has to include networking. And then we list different professional associations and some other ideas that they could do. Some things here that I always like to highlight. These couple things, grammar essentials, textbook study strategies, writing in your content area, these are adult education courses in our academic learning center. Yeah, use these as pro points. It's going to help you be a more successful student. That's also getting them to engage with a resource on campus, but we're qualifying it as pro points. So anything to just further engage and support their success. Those are all different experiences that would qualify. I talked about this speaker in these 2 series though. How do these work? So because I came from outreach and recruitment and I was formerly actually in marketing and tourism, I really like that real-time engagement. So I came to my dean probably after week 1 of my second semester of Intro to Business and said, hey, I want to bring speakers into class because I really think it would be valuable for Intro to Business. And then I want to open this up for other students for pro points. And that's kind of how it happened. He's like, all right, if you can line up speakers, Sure, why not? I think it's a great idea. I had the rest of the term lined up about a week or two later. So I had my speakers for the remainder of the term ready to go, and it's been a really great success. When we launched this last fall, we initially just started having speakers in Intro to Business that were really targeted at the topics. We then opened it up to panel discussions in other classes or individual speakers in other classes, ending up with 21 guest speakers in all throughout 2024, 2025, and leaning on our contacts, our advisory board members, anyone that we could engage to bring them into the classroom. Integrating it into courses really helps because you're not scheduling a speaker and worried that no one's going to show up. You ultimately have your students there already, and then it's opened up to other program students and now college wide. So students from all over can sit in on the parts of the class that are a part of the speaker session. We had over 200 students participate in those speaker sessions that were an extension of the students in those classes, which was very successful. We then decided, okay, we also need to do some tours. This would be a great opportunity to obviously get students into those spaces and having them see what it would be like to work at different companies in our area. That was launched later in this most recent spring. So we've only hosted 2 tours so far and had 17 students participate. That was a little lower because it wasn't a requirement in a specific class. If we start integrating those tours into a class like we've done the speakers, I think we'd ultimately see the same amount of success. My last couple of slides here is just how it's really made an impact. We have seen a shift in these from the first 8 weeks of managing them. We got a lot of pushback. We got a lot of students who just choose not to complete them and lose the 10% ultimately. But we overall, when we ended up the year, had over 1,000 Pro Points submissions. And as you watch them grow, the increasing participation across all of our modalities was there. The reflections got better, the student confidence. We have students that actually complete more than 2 because they just start showing up at different events. This was one of my favorite quotes from one of my Intro to Business students that said, having the speaker series and Pro Point opportunities allowed me as a student to step into the real world and learn from those that are more wise and well-versed in the business world than I am, ultimately seeing that it really is making an impact. And as we get close to having some time for questions, if you're thinking about wanting to integrate something like Pro Points, start small, make sure that you're consistent, and make sure that it's visible and keep it flexible. Ultimately, it is something that, like anything that we're doing, it's practice over perfection. And each time we teach a class, it gets better. Each time we've rolled out Pro Points each term, our offerings, the way we communicate it, everything, it's improved each time. And something that I mentioned in the beginning, this is really meant to be a cultural shift. So we really want to change it from I have to I get to learn, I get to engage, and I get to network. So hope you enjoyed the content. Any questions that anyone has, I would greatly appreciate it. Oh, Leonard, you're muted.
Thank you. So I'm giving folks time to put a couple questions into the chat. Can you see those questions?
I can.
Okay. And so before we do that, I just want to thank you, Morgan, for sharing your knowledge and experience with us today. It's really insightful. Thank you. Thank you for the wonderful job that you guys are doing over there with ProPoint. So you can address the questions as you see fit.
All right, so this first one was interesting concept. How many and which courses require Pro Points? All of our business management program courses now require Pro Points. There are a few caveats. We have a few 1-credit courses that have a workshop component that we do not require them in because they're a 1-credit course, but all of our courses require Pro Points. So it's in very much a standard, and students are kind of accepting that now. And then the expectation for submission. So 1 paragraph or proof. So when we want them to reflect on about 3 things that they learned, we really want to make sure we can see that they gained something from it or that they actually participated and attended the event. So I'm very thankful to all of my fellow faculty. We're all very good stewards on this, and it's a team effort that we review those submissions. And if a student has 1 sentence and they didn't really explain it, we go back to them and ask them for more and ask them questions, because it's also a learning opportunity for those students who maybe are just trying to check a box, for us to challenge them of what they're actually getting out of it. So they do look at this as something that they're gaining personally and professionally from, and it's not just a box check. Oh, thank you, Bob. So Bob is was my faculty mentor. He's great. And then one of my fellow faculty talked about the reaction from employers with the ProPoints initiative. We have gotten extreme support, especially from our advisory board. So one of the things that our advisory board had expressed to us is we really want students to have professional development. We want them to be lifelong learners. We want them to engage. We want them to know how to network, to see the value of engaging outside of just what they're doing at their job. And so there has been a ton of support. We actually have a few advisory members who've been guest speakers or have sat on panels, and they've spoke to the transition from maybe for this fall of 2024 to this fall and how they're seeing students change and show up, even just dress. You know, when you tell a student, okay, business casual, you're going to be meeting with people at this event, they kind of freak out a little bit and they don't know what that means. But even just their confidence and how they're able to present themselves and communicate, we're seeing that grow immensely.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much. And for future questions, what I did, I hope you don't mind, Morgan, but I put your contact information in the
Oh,
chat
you just
there
beat
for
me to it.
that's okay. That's okay. You're on your way. So we just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you for a wonderful job and thank you for being available for future questions. Should folks have any questions, they can email you directly. Thank you. Awesome job.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your Friday.